A function is a relation if for every input there is exactly one output. So if you input a 4, you need to get an output out, like 5 or something. But you can't input a 4 and get out 2 different answers. Okay, so for a function is such that every input has exactly one output. Now one way to tell if something is a function is by using the vertical line test. Now the vertical line test only works for graphs, obviously. And what it says is a relation is a function of the horizontal axis variable, okay, basically the x variable, if and only if no vertical line passes through 2 or more points on the graph. No vertical line passes through 2 or more points on the graph. Here's what this means. You can see right here, this is our graph. Let's see if I can draw that better. Okay. Now, if we were to run a vertical line across it, represented by the dotted line, it's only going to hit the graph in one spot ever. That's why it's a function. If you look at this graph here, okay, that's a little different than what we're used to, as is the first one. But if you were to run this vertical line across it, it would only hit the graph at one time. Okay, let me show you that, what I mean by moving the graph across it. Okay. Okay, so if I take my vertical line here and I run it across this graph, it's only ever going to hit the graph at one spot. Okay, same thing is true as here, is if I run it across it, it's only going to hit the graph in one spot. Now, if you look at this graph here, this U-shaped looking graph, okay, if I were to run a vertical line over it, notice here it's hitting at one point, but everywhere else it's hitting at 2 points. Now here's what that means. Let's say this is the point right here. We'll call this the point 3, 4. Okay, I'm just going to say that this is 3 and this is 4. Okay, then down here it's going to be hitting at the point 3, negative 4. Okay, now if you look at these 2 points, 3, 4, and 3, negative 4. Notice when I input 3, what do I get out? I get out both a 4 and a negative 4. That's why this is not a function. That's why it works for the vertical line test. When we run a vertical line across it, it'll tell us that, okay, what happens at 3? Over here, at 3, well, I'm at the point, who knows? Maybe we'll call this 3, 2, I don't know. But it's only hitting the line at that one point. The same thing is true over here. Okay, it only hits the graph at one spot every single time. But when it hits the graph in 2 spots, that means it's not a function. It's still a relation, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just not a function because the function says every input has exactly one output. Okay? The same is true for this S-shaped graph here. Notice when I run a vertical line over it, here it's hitting only in one spot, it's hitting in one spot right here, one spot, but as we go across now you can see that we're hitting it in actually 3 spots. Okay? Nothing wrong with it, it's a relation, it's just not a function because it hits the graph in more than one spot. If it hits it in more than one spot, that means every input has more than one output. So the vertical line test is just a quick way to look at a graph and know whether the graph is a function or not. If it only hits one spot on the graph at any point, it's a function. But if it hits 2 or more, then it's no longer a function.